Right,
What up, what up? Welcome to
yeah.
Permaculture 101 with
That's not what my page is called.
what's it called?
PIG.Permaculture.
Ah, PIG. PIG.
Maybe I should change it to Permaculture 101 now.
I mean, you can have a lesson from PIG called Permaculture 101.
Yeah, maybe this is it then. All right, this is Permaculture 101, the start of the series.
I mean, you've already done some videos, so hey, I'm just here to have a wee chat. I'm not a programmer. I don't make the episodes. I'm just here to have a good time.
Yeah, so maybe if we introduce ourselves a little bit. I don't know, just a quick, simple introduction. So, yeah, obviously I'm Hamish. I own the PIG YouTube channel, and yeah, so we do permaculture. We teach permaculture. We complete designs, consultations for people, and yeah. What about yourself, Sol?
So my name's Solomon, and I'm the co-owner of PIG.Permaculture.
Oh yeah, you wish us.
I get 50% of the shares. I love nature. That is the one thing I contribute to this group. I just, I got the passion, man. So I let Hamish do the bits and just be happy for him.
All right, cool. Well, I think this video is just going to be, just like a gentle kind of podcast. I know Sol has some questions, and yeah, I think this video is going to be good for anybody just wanting to tune into permaculture and see what it's all about, and just a brief overview of it, basically. And I don't know what we're going to talk about, to be honest with you, but I'm sure it'd be quite interesting.
Yeah, but no, I've not said anything.
So, how much do you know about permaculture?
I know a good slice about permaculture. I hang out with permaculture people, and I have to listen to English for quite a long time.
Yeah.
And I know a bit, but to be honest, it's not my profession. But I would say I spend a lot of time in nature and have more of that emotional side to it rather than know how with symbiosis with PIG.Permaculture.
And you've got your slacklining stuff as well and stuff like this, right? You love being in the forest and yeah.
Big up the forest.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you're ever in England, go check out Dartmoor.
Oh, I love Dartmoor. Yeah. So much. We should go walking.
Okay, well, we should.
Yeah.
One day we shall.
Yeah.
Should we start then?
Yeah.
I'm allowed to swear on this.
You're allowed to swear? I don't know. I might beep it out.
Okay.
I don't know. Does Joe Rogan allow swearing?
I think so.
Okay, maybe.
We're going for that.
Yeah.
I'll make some animal noises and say some incredibly American shit as well.
Yeah.
But okay, well, yeah, to the listeners out there, thanks for tuning in. It's a pleasure to have you. And okay, so first question.
Wow, you should have your own YouTube, man. You're a real showboater.
I've got 7 subscribers. I've got it.
Hey, I've got 36, so you're catching up with me.
Yeah, alright, don't scrub it.
Well, I don't mean to brag or anything, but
what do you think about that? Okay, swiftly moving on. So maybe Hamish, it would be lovely to hear about the beginning of your permaculture experience. When did you first connect with it? And kind of take us into the world of Hamish and nature. Start off.
Interesting. Okay. Well, I first kind of came to permaculture when I was I see a lot of people go through this, right? When they come to my courses, they always say, like, I don't know what to do, but I know there's something wrong. There's like something going on that I don't like. Like, I know about recycling, I know about like air pollution, blah blah blah, and I know something's up with the world, because it's all over the news, etc. But I just have no idea what to do about it, and that's a majority of the reason why people go into permaculture, from my experience, is because of that. And it was exactly the same for me. So I was working for a landscaping company at the time, quite depressed really, because I was working on building sites, and I was there firsthand, seeing it firsthand, the destruction basically of the environment, because in new home builds, they just completely destroy everything, and they just build houses on top of it, and probably what a lot of people live in today, right? They're just big estates, and they're all tarmacked over, and then there's little patches left for the land. So yeah, I was doing that firsthand, and I really didn't like it. I already knew I loved nature from a young age. And really, when I first went traveling, when I was about 17 years old, I went to my first permaculture farm, and that's kind of where the inspiration for it began. But at that age, I was still quite young. The knowledge hadn't really matured yet, so it took a few years to kind of ground. Like, the seed was planted, but the real scope of permaculture, the kind of idea of it being something like, oh shit, like, we need to do this, that kind of sense of it only came when I went into that job, because it was so confrontational, and yeah, I was not in a very good place, because it was very low pay. It was just, knowing about that kind of stuff anyway, like knowing about permaculture and being in that role. So kind of having an idea of it already, and then working in that role was really difficult for me. And I spent 2 years in that role. So yeah, it was a long time. And then, I randomly came across a permaculture design course. And I just went for it, and it was a 2-week intensive course.
What was that like?
Fantastic. Yeah, amazing, really intense. It was with Aranya from Learn Permaculture. I really recommend his website. It's got loads of great information on there, content, his YouTube. He's got certainly more than, great book. Yeah, I had his book for a long time, gave it away. But yeah, he's got certainly more than 37 followers on his YouTube.
Yeah.
Hopefully I'll speak to him, actually. I've been wanting to get him on for a little call and just, do a similar thing to what you're doing with me, really. Just ask him some questions. I think it'd be nice.
Sounds awesome.
Yeah.
So what was, talk to me more about this 2-week intensive experience. What it was like walking in, what the people like, and what was anything like first get baptized with all that stuff?
Yeah, so a permaculture design course really is, so it's a 2-week intensive course where you just learn as much about permaculture as possible, and it's so much information that you won't be able to retain it all, but you'll come out of it with a pretty good understanding of what permaculture is about. Normally people start with a 2-day introduction course and then go on to the 2-week. So I host the 2-day courses, but I don't host the 2-week courses yet. But yeah, it was in Dartmoor actually, in a place called High Heathercombe. I don't know if
Okay.
you know it. Is it near
Where is
like
that in?
Grimspound? You know Grimspound?
I mean, I like to think that I know everything about them, but I don't really know.
Really? You don't know Grimspound? It's like an ancient
What
site.
part? What part of Dartmoor?
Near. It's kind of. I think it's close to. No, it's further than Moreton Hampstead. It might be
South,
near
north, west, east?
southwest. I want to say.
I don't travel on this part.
Yeah, it's a beautiful site though. You should go. Um, and there's it's quite close to there. It's about 20 minutes away from there, I think, 15, 20. The owner of the place, well, she wasn't the owner, she was like the kind of manager. She's called Mel. She actually died about a year ago, I think now. But beautiful person. And that even, I mean, that whole space is just worth a quick like 1 minute conversation, because she did so much for that space. There was so many like Buddhist retreats, permaculture, emotional things, like spiritual, and I really connected with Mel as well. I love her so much, and the work she did was amazing. So yeah, big up to Mel.
So is there a big community of permaculture in Dartmoor then?
It's funny with permaculture, it's like you're either in community or you are a kind of like a hobbit or a witch kind of out in the woods somewhere in England, I feel. And I don't know, I kind of feel that's kind of the thing out in everywhere really, because you've either got your own land and you kind of keep to yourself, and if you know about permaculture, you don't need to spend money really. You don't need to spend much money, especially on like, I don't know, on like, because you've got seed swapping, you're trying to use the stuff on your land rather than go out and buy loads of new pointless things. Of course, if you really have to buy something and it's going to be really beneficial for the land, then obviously it's worth doing. But yeah, so you've got these two kind of groups in permaculture. You've got the one which is I don't know what the word is. It's like, I want to say hobbit, but it's not. It's somebody who just lives out in the woods and doesn't speak to anyone.
Yeah, hermit.
Yeah, hermit, that's it. A hermit, or you're in a community. And yeah, so there's these two types of characters basically, or ways of getting into permaculture. And yeah, I mean, both as beautiful as each other. The community, you're probably going to have a lot more things going on, especially in the human dynamics. It can be really hard to balance that, especially because we've obviously grown up in a world where we haven't been taught how to live in community in school. And not only that, in school, we don't get taught really how to speak to each other, how to deal with our emotions, how to deal with conflict resolution, stuff like this. And the hermit side of things, it depends where you are, could be a bit lonely. Oh gosh. Yeah, but it's a beautiful way of life as well, because most people who are hermits live out in the nature and maybe not many people around. Or maybe they do have a lot of neighbors and they can trade between each other, trade seeds, trade crops. They can do stuff like have, open mic nights at, Mike's place. I don't know, but it's that kind of like, yeah, exactly. It's kind of coming back to community as well. Both options do give you that choice depending where you are, obviously. And then you can also have people come to your place as well and volunteer, things like that. But all in all, really, the permaculture gives you such a beautiful way of life. To be honest, even if you're in the city and you do permaculture, city permaculture is a thing as well, because it doesn't matter where you are. Permaculture is just finding creative ways to grow food and to grow resilience, to grow community, and a better way of life. So with permaculture, you should be able to satisfy all of your needs. And that is across the board, thing. Because if you think about it, permaculture was derived from looking at nature, looking at how nature flourishes. So we've taken all of them, that's the systems that exist there, the methods and the processes, and
I'm sorry, it's funny. I was just telling myself, don't laugh, and that was that was a really insightful idea.
I don't think we'll get through anything without laughing, really. Do you remember the meditations that we used to do with each other? We just could not stop laughing. And there was a good point though. So yeah, of course, about like the forest, for example, just being in the forest. when you walk around the forest, right, and you've got all of the trees there, you've got the ground layer, you've got the fungi underneath, you've got the roots, everything, all the animals, the plants, they're all living in harmony, harmoniously. Obviously, apart from a few that eat each other, but also that is part of the bigger system as well. We humans don't need to, take that system of eating each other. Yeah, so we don't need to take all of the systems from nature, but just learning how they work, we can see the abundance that it creates. Everybody knows when you walk in a forest, there is an extreme amount of abundance around you. And a jungle, for example, and that's just how nature wants to be. That's just how it grows naturally. So, yeah, I think it's actually one of the definitions of permaculture, or a way to think about permaculture, is observing natural ecosystems, learning from the principles, the designs, the methods that it uses, and then how do we apply that to our own lives. And as we know, permaculture wants to take everything from something to extremely high productive, like a jungle or a forest. So whether it's like African plains or something which has like hardly any topsoil on it, maybe it's a really degraded piece of land. Nature always wants to heal that wound like a scar on the skin, cover it and grow. So always cover in the soil and grow. Obviously each climate has its challenges, but generally that's what nature wants to do. So if we've taken the principles from that system, then everything that we do with that system, if we implement it somewhere, it's going to be regenerative. So whether we implement that into the financial systems, the social systems, the garden, obviously, the ecosystems, educational systems, it's always going to be regenerative and it's always going to be beautiful. And if it's not, then it's not permaculture.
Yeah, there's obviously there's golden ratio, which is very prevalent in nature.
Right.
Good old snail.
Yeah.
But can I jump to another question?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, fire away.
So let me just see what I've got here. So I'm seeking for previous.
Have you ran out of questions? Maybe I should ask you a question.
You gonna cut this bit?
No, Matt, I'm gonna keep you in there. Yeah, I can do. All right, now let me ask you a question. Let me ask you one.
No, I want to fucking ask you one.
No, I want to ask you one.
I've got good questions. It's just I was trying to also find a way to segue off what you just said and was struggling to keep like some sort of.
Okay.
So can I just ask you one that's just like a bit
out of the blue?
Off topic.
That's all right. You can do that if you want.
Okay, so earlier you were talking a bit about your experience with just being introduced to permaculture. And I'm curious what you're getting from permaculture. Wait a second. No, okay, right. Okay, recap. So, I'm curious what you're seeking in permaculture. If you could talk a little bit like that.
What I'm seeking?
Yeah. What you get from permaculture and what rewards do you get?
Rewards. Well, so I run the design business, which is my main income at the moment. From design works. No, so I had Earth Circle Designs was my first business, and that was a mixture of permaculture and hard and soft landscaping, so normal like patios, fences. And the only reason why I did that is because people just weren't ready for permaculture. And to be honest, even now, it's getting there, but it's still quite difficult in England, for example. That's where I was doing that business. Then I changed it to just design and consulting because I was just earning money from that, and I felt good about that. And then I started traveling as well, so it made sense. But that's when I met you, actually. So before I met you, not last summer, but the summer before, I was still doing my business, Earth Circle Designs, and again it was still hard to do because it wasn't totally permaculture, and I was still dealing with cement and things like this, even though I would do like permaculture designs for the client, but then just because you're a permaculturist doesn't mean they are, and doesn't mean they actually understand what permaculture actually is. So what would normally happen is there would be like, so I just want a garden that looks really nice. I want it to have, high points. I want there to be bushes in there. I want there to be flowers. And I would take them requirements and be like, okay, so I've got all of these requirements. How do I make a healthy ecosystem here? And I would just sneakily put in like nitrogen fixers and basically plants that they wanted, but that also had a multiple function of helping the ecosystem. So I was like a sneaky ninja permaculturist.
It's good design work, though.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's and then I went on to teaching. So I went from the implementation, maintenance side of things to the design, consulting, and then teaching. And the teaching has been the most rewarding, actually. It's been the most fun, and it makes the most sense because a lot of people aren't there, like I was just saying, they don't really understand what permaculture is. A lot of people just think it's something to do with planting plants, and obviously it covers that, but the scope of permaculture is humongous. Like, it is such huge potential to heal our earth in all of our ways. It's the answer to every single crisis we face at the moment.
So how do we spread that then?
What we're doing now, really, that's pretty much what I've got it down to. I mean, I'm in the middle of creating 2 books at the moment about permaculture, and I've got an online course which I've almost finished. And I just think it's things like this about teaching, just giving stuff for free and spreading the awareness and the knowledge out there. Yeah, that's basically how it's done.
To throw a little bit of a curveball, I'm not sure if you've thought about this, but are there ways in which we can make permaculture more inclusive? Because it feels like we're talking earlier about who's involved with permaculture and how we can, there's permaculture happening in cities. There's a lot in Bristol, but it still feels like it's a very tight-knit community. And if it's going to be solving these massive problems that we're facing today, how are we taking it to more people?
Yeah, that's a good question, actually. Because I think it's kind of like this thing. So I grew up in quite a businessy family, right? And it's kind of this thing where trying to educate people to buy a product is much more difficult than people already knowing what your product is or your service and then buying it. So that the difference between having to educate somebody about what permaculture is and somebody already knowing what permaculture is, like 2 different things. And we're at a kind of stage where there's a lot of people know there's things wrong with the earth. There's things wrong with our financial systems, our ecological systems, and what's going on right now. And rightly so. I mean, it's bloody obvious, right? But it's getting the people from that point to permaculture is quite a challenging thing. And in my experience, it's always been, like I said, it's always been people who knew there was something wrong and wanted to do something about it. Does that make sense? So it's kind of like a self actualization, like a self, I don't know, like this embodying this knowledge of, okay, there is something wrong and I am responsible and I have to do something. Whereas I see a lot of people, for example, my old landscaping company, the one I used to work for, wasn't mine. There was people there who were not necessarily interested in helping the environment, but knew something was wrong and was kind of like self-sabotaging, like already saying, okay, this is what's going on, and if it's going that way, then it's going that way, and it's not my fault. So
it's all of these materials, spices, and behaviours that feels like it's so easy, it's so accessible, and it's so easy to do this because this is what we've been doing for a long, long time.
Yeah.
And in my opinion, maybe a bit controversial, I think that it's good that we've got to this stage, that we have done damage to our planet, because it is a natural form of us learning and kind of going through this process.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I just hope that we don't. I don't know. It depends on the mood, but sometimes I feel like, okay, we'll do it in time, or we'll really get bitten in the ass before we sort out stuff, and everyone can see how big the problem is, how much it's impacting them directly, and how they can make a difference, or how they need to make a difference.
Yeah, and it's a heavy burden, and I think that's why a lot of people don't want to look at it. It's like, it's similar to traumas, because they're so scary to look at first, and you would rather not look at them. You would rather be like, okay, no, that's over there. I don't want to look at that memory. That was a hard thing to go through. I'm not reliving it. And instantly the feelings come up, of maybe, oh, I'm a bad person. I feel guilty about that. And it's only from when you work through the trauma do you come out the other side and you're like, oh, okay, maybe that wasn't actually my fault, or yeah, I did do that, and I'm really sorry, and I did my thing, and now I feel good about it. Just to give an example. And it's the same thing with the environment, I believe, is that nobody wants to feel like a bad person. Nobody, and I really believe that nobody is a bad person deep down. We can act like bad people, but I don't believe we all are, horrible devils. But yeah, I think what I see is that people hear the climate crisis and they just don't want to look at it. They don't want to, they don't want to feel them feelings of, oh shit, this isn't good for a lot of reasons. For example, my kids, what world are my kids going to grow up in? I mean, that should be a massive question to any parents out there. And that should be enough reason to change your mindset and do something about it. But, again, in a lot from what I've seen, it's been quite hard. And it's, a little bit about me when I first heard about permaculture and I was seeing the fields, and then the fields are, as in, the way we farm with monocultures and how destructive that is and how abundant that system is, as in how massively and widely used that system is. And just knowing that and driving past it every day, that was really hard for me to get through in my mind. And it was also really hard for me because the people around me didn't understand and didn't care. So there was a lot of things there emotionally that I had to go through that maybe not many people would be going through at all, because I chose to see. I chose not to turn my head. I chose to do the research and actually educate myself about the environment and about where we are right now, where we're going, but also where we can be. So yeah, I would encourage anybody who's listening and watching this to just feel the feelings, to just go with it, do the research, see where we are going. And like I said, it's obviously a heavy burden to hear, and then get on the solutions, because the solutions are beautiful. The solutions are way better than where we are now and where we're going. And they will be way better for you, for anybody who's listening. It's just, permaculture is this thing that we need to look at, and we need to look at it now. We need to, get on these systems and build these designs and work together. It's just such a more beautiful way of life than the typical 9 to 5 work for a boss, get taxed every month, realize you've got nothing left, and then have to work the whole month again in a job which you don't really like anyway. You know, and I'm not saying that it's easy. It's hard. You know, when I went from my job to my own business, that was a really difficult thing to do, and I made a big risk, because I had my business for 2 months before I quit my job, and when I quit my job, I had a mortgage to pay. I had no savings. I had, you know, I had nothing, but I came to the point which I was like, I just cannot live anymore. I cannot live another day without just doing my purpose, without doing something that I feel really good about. And that's really what it came down to. So I don't know if it takes everybody to hit that point of like, right, it's either die or live your bloody purpose. But if it does, then I imagine it will be at a point where they're like, okay, there's like no food in the supermarkets anymore, and I need to do something about that. Like, I have the money to buy food, but it's not there. or I've just turned on my tap in my kitchen and there's no water coming out. What do I do now? You know, hopefully it doesn't come to that, but honestly, you know, maybe that is what is needed, and maybe that's where the change will come from.
Yeah, maybe we should just turn off the taps for a day, and then everyone will be freaking out, and everyone will be turned on so that we can turn the taps back on.
Yeah, self-sabotage. Sabotage the system.
So I mean, where